Okay. My name is Jamie Staten, and I'm the Family Engagement Specialist here at TRECA. Thank you for joining us. We have a couple of our teaching staff that's going to help us walk us through these topics today. A couple of quick statements. You will want to keep yourself muted while we're speaking. There's quite a few of us on here. That way we don't get a bunch of feedback. We will have time for questions throughout. So at that time, you can unmute yourself or you can put your question in the chat box, whatever you're comfortable with. So today we're going to be talking about checking and understanding student progress. And then we're also going to be talking about how to interpret STAR data and how to support your student in that. So at this time, we're going to start with checking and understanding student progress. And I am going to hand it over to Mr. Daly.
Hey everyone, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. My name is Daniel Daly. I am a social studies teacher at the high school level here at TRECA. This is my 13th year here. If your student is taking American government, I may have them this year or when they take that class. So again, thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. And if you're watching the recording back later, thank you so much for checking out this important information. There's two really huge ideas I'm going to go over as we go through. Some questions might pop up. Definitely keep in mind, we'll have time at the end of my portion to ask questions. So maybe jot that question down and we'll circle back and address it. But two really big things to always keep in mind tonight and going forward here at TRECA is that checking student progress is a collaborative and ongoing effort between students, learning partners, you guys, and TRECA staff. And second thing is asking questions or asking for help is always welcome and encouraged. We're here to support you and your student, and we want to see them succeed. We're all on the same team. So always keep those two things in mind as we go into our school year. Talking about checking progress, kind of the first thing I want to cover, go over some basic terminology that you'll see with your students. Some of you are returning to TRECA after being here before. Some of you are new families. Kind of the system that unites everyone together, regardless of what grade level you are in, is that our students use Brightspace as where they complete their work. That is our learning management system. By logging into Brightspace each day, students get attendance credit and access their classes. Brightspace is effectively our school building. A student might walk into their local school district, their local school building to go to school. Here at TRECA, logging into Brightspace serves that function. It's where they access their classes. We can see their progress. As a learning partner for your student, regardless of the grade level of your student, really should be checking progress at least once a week. Depending on the grade level that your student is in, that's going to vary. We wanted you to make it part of your routine. We really encourage learning partners and students to log in together. This is a supportive and collaborative process. Sometimes when we see parents, especially at the high schoolers I work with, if mom or dad or grandma is logging in and then separately from the student, sometimes that can create a little bit of a power struggle. We want this to be a positive, supportive, collaborative process that is just part of our routine to say, hey, let's sit down and see where you're at, what you've done this week. We all have good weeks. We all have bad weeks. We want to stay supportive and positive to our students. At the end of this session, I'll also include a link to the Learning Partner Guide. This is a great document that you looked at and signed during the orientation process. This kind of outlines some of the expectations and important jobs that you have as learning partners. So depending on the grade level, it kind of scales how much support you likely are giving to your student and some specific tasks you can carry out. So I'll link that at the end if you need a refresher there. Like I said, Brightspace is where our students access their courses. So once you are logged in with your student, they're logging in with their username and password with you alongside them. There are two ways for them to access their courses. One is the little tiles, little images under My Courses. Easily click through, and each class has a little picture tied to it representing what the class is. For government, it's a picture of the Capitol building. Another way is the little waffle icon at the top. If students click that, it will give you a drop-down list of all of their current courses. Something I want to encourage you or your student to do if they haven't done this yet is Brightspace does have a cool feature called pinning. You can pin courses, especially if your student is at the middle school or high school level. They end up in a bunch of what we call course shells, kind of additional information that might be things like, planning for their career. It might be mental health and support. It might be our main office, their advisor homeroom. In the little image here, the blue items are pinned. You see the pin item is colored in. So those classes are always at the top. That just makes it easy so those kind of academic credit-bearing classes are there for your student. At the elementary or middle school level, that still might be important just to separate things like our main office shell from our academic courses. Some Brightspace features that you can navigate through. First would be the course home. When you click on the course, for example, American Government, it takes you right to the course home. This shows you who your teacher is, how to contact them, and their office hours. So you can see my lovely picture there, as well as a week 1 update about American Government. So each one of your students' classes has a different teacher, and just general information about the class, and their contact information will be presented on that course home. If you're having difficulty or you hear from a student that they're having difficulty, you can help them reach out to their teacher through the contact methods listed. The next place you can explore this is where your student spends most of their time. You might not spend as much time here, is the content page. The content page is where students access and complete their work for their class. All classes are set up using blocks. Each block consists of 3 weeks of work. Ideally, students advance through a block every 3 weeks. So you see it's kind of tiny in the image here, but the student has access to block 1, week 1. So they'll complete block 1, week 1, that first week that they're enrolled, and advance to block 1, week 2. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. One other place that you're going to click, and this is probably where you would spend most of your time with your student checking progress, is the grades page. The grades page is the easiest place to check student progress. This is just the grade book for your student. You never have to wait for a progress report to come home or a report card, all those things. The grades page should be updated every day as students complete work, so you always have it kind of at the moment update on how your student is doing. The teacher for the class should have the grade book very clearly labeled so you know which assignments are from which block. Again, kind of tiny image here. I apologize, but it does say, block 1, week 1, welcome to government quiz. Block 1, week 2, government essentials quiz. It should be labeled there so you and the student have an understanding of what block that work belongs to and where that grade was earned. As students complete work, they'll see their score and their feedback from their teacher. Also on the grades page, I wanted to shout out at the very top here, you can always see the final calculated grade. That's kind of a confusing title that Brightspace gives it. That is just their current grade based on the points they've earned. Sometimes I have high school students who need to know their current grade for a discount on insurance or to play a sport. So that is where we usually derive that grade from, is that final calculated grade. It will show you how many points they've earned out of how many they've attempted so far. They can also view quiz attempts from this page, as well as view feedback on written assignments from their teacher. If there's something missing, if there's something blank there that the student says, hey, I did that, I turned that in yesterday, it's really likely that the teacher has yet to grade it, and it's waiting for that grade to be assigned. Then it will display the feedback. Final portion about the grades page here, we have to keep in mind a block of work. Remember, there's 3 weeks of work is not complete until every assignment in that block has been passed. Once a grade is earned, the far right column should show a passing grade, indicated by that red arrow there. And teachers may leave that feedback and say, hey, please redo this, or please check your email, or we need to set up a meeting. So that feedback you can assist your student with, oh, Mr. Daly put a link where he wants you to sign up for a meeting, or there's an alternate assignment available there. That feedback column is going to be really helpful for communicating what the teacher is seeing from the assignment and what next steps the students can take. So you're helping supporting students in accessing that and taking action from that feedback is really appreciated. Just a few examples here progressing through blocks. Like we said, a block is made up of 3 weeks of work. Semester-long class is 6 blocks. A year-long class is 12 blocks. So I teach American Government. It's a 12-block class. Students take it for the whole entire school year. Weeks 1, 2, 3 of a class equal block 1, weeks 4, 5, 6 equal block 2, and students should complete that block of work every 3 weeks to be on schedule. So again, this is just kind of TRECA specific terminology. If you've been here a year before, you know this already, but I appreciate your patience since it is definitely new for some families. Here's an example for Grace's Algebra 1 class. Grace is a new student at TRECA and just started algebra at the beginning of the school year on August 18th. So that first week of school, Grace should finish block 1, week 1. Second week, should finish block 1, week 2. Then that third week of school, we want to see her finish block 1, week 3. Then doing that, block 1 would be finished and she could gain access to block 2. For middle and high school students, another way to think about progress, and I see more and more of our students and advisors encouraging this thinking, is that they can aim to complete 10 to 15 graded assignments a week across all their classes. That doesn't mean complete 15 things in government, 15 things in Spanish, 15 things in math. It's a selection from a few. So I'll do an example here in a second. But a graded assignment would be an assignment that's found on the grades page. Students and learning partners can develop a system like a sticky note, a digital note, to jot down which assignments were completed through the week. Setting that goal can make it easier to ensure that students are also meeting their attendance time requirement of 5 hours and 10 minutes a day, or about 26 hours per week that students are required to work. So this is a method I see advisors recommending, just because it may be possible for your student to finish that week of work, to finish block 1, week 1, introductory stuff, about you, welcome to the class. They might finish that within that 5 hours and 10 minutes, but they still have more time they need to account for. So in a later open house session, we'll talk more specifically about that time element, but time and progress do go together. So you might have some questions about that. We'll stay tuned to the end here. We'll get the date for that open house. So an example, like I talked about for 10 to 15 graded assignments, would be if our same student, Grace, completed 3 assignments in biology, 2 in American government, 4 in algebra, 2 in English, and 2 in health. As Grace works, she writes down those assignments and she is verifying that she's on track. By completing those 13 assignments, we added them all up, she's making adequate progress across her classes. So again, every item on that grades page would count towards her goal of 10 to 15 items per week. So we'll look at more at that, and how we can get help with that is our advisors. Again, at the middle and high school level, each student is assigned an advisor and are a member of their homeroom. So remember a couple of slides ago, we saw that drop-down list where students have their academic classes, and then they also may have, a main office, a homeroom. Their advisor homeroom is located there, which is going to have resources for tracking progress, for setting goals, would be found there. Advisors, again, just at the middle and high school level, have a great overview of a student's classes and can help support the students and learning partners to set progress goals or provide an overview of a student's work so far that year. Through the year, the advisor will call and email you for progress updates. So if you've been enrolled here at TRECA since last week, you've probably heard from your advisor with a phone call or email for your student at the middle or high school level. Also keep in mind, your teacher, so like for American government, you can work with your teacher to set individual goals as well. The advisor, just their role is they see all their classes. I don't, as a government teacher, really know what's going on in biology and algebra and all the other classes. The advisor sees everything and is aware of how the student's doing and how to catch up or how to reach a goal across all of the classes. They're a really valuable resource. At the elementary level, students and learning partners can work directly with their teachers and review their course announcements and email each day for communications. The learning partners obviously are going to have a big role in supporting elementary students to help them check their email, respond, reach out. You guys do a lot of that work, since this younger students aren't prepared to do that independently quite yet at the youngest levels. Your teacher would love to continue to support you in making sure you're staying on track. And they'll contact you through the year about your students' progress in learning. This looks like a big, scary wall of text. It kind of is. I apologize, but I'll go through it kind of quickly here. This is just what I see a lot of the times as a high school teacher. What's cool about TRECA is so many, if not all, of our students come here for a specific reason or they have a specific goal. So I just listed some examples I've seen over the past few years, where these are students who advancing at that rate of one block every 3 weeks, maybe that's not going to help them meet their goal. Maybe they need to go a little faster. We are a continuous progress environment. So one of the great things about us is that students are able to advance at a more quickly than a traditional brick and mortar high school. So I'll kind of share some things that I've seen and how working with advisors, working with teachers would be super valuable for these students and likely for your student as well if they have a specific goal that's more than just completing a traditional school year. So Alexander joins TRECA this year and he should be a senior. However, at his previous school, he had failed several classes and is still a junior. He wants to graduate this year, but will need to complete more than a school year of work. Terry joined TRECA this year and will take several college-level classes through the College Credit Plus program, as well as several classes through TRECA. So his schedule is going to look a lot different than a student taking all TRECA classes. Ella started the year at her local school district, but enrolled at TRECA in January after her family moved. She earned credit for the first semester of 4 of her 5 classes. So she'll start in the second semester of those 4 classes, but will have to restart the other one from the beginning. So, hey, what kind of progress do I need to make in that 5th class? They basically have to start over because I didn't earn credit at my last school. That would be a great conversation to have with the advisor, with the teacher, to set those progress goals. And finally, Allie is returning to TRECA after a very productive junior year and wishes to try and graduate early. Maybe they want to graduate in the winter or the spring before the summer and June rolls around. So they would work with their advisor for that. One thing to note is that just like a traditional brick and mortar school, we do send home a printed and mailed progress report twice a year. These usually go out in late January and then at the end of the school year. So these progress reports actually pull the information on them directly from Brightspace. So if you're checking the grades page, it's nothing should be a surprise to you. It's all going to be derived from there. How many points they've earned, what their grade is, how many assignments they've completed, and it even says where they should be, what expected block they should be in, which is a nice feature here. So you do have one of these mailed home, which is nice, but you don't necessarily have to wait for that to show up in your mail in January. Some tips from our advisors. I asked a few advisors that, hey, like what should we tell the learning partners to help them support their students and help all of us work together? They said to know who each staff member is supporting your student at TRECA. So that's a teacher, advisor, counselor. What are the differences in those roles and how they can support your student? Don't hesitate to reach out early and often. That was one of our big ideas we had is, there's no silly question or you're not going to annoy us. We want to answer your questions. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Don't wait until those paper progress reports come home. Check your email spam folders. I've never seen this happen, but it's possible. You might have an automated type email sent to your spam email from TRECA. I don't think that's really a risk, but it never hurts to check. TRECA's phone number is at 888-828-4798. So you can add this to your contacts just so you know who's calling. If your high school student has a special goal for the school year, it's really important they communicate that early in the year or as they enroll. Sometimes students tell us in May, hey, I really wanted to get, X amount of work done. And it's like, well, it's May. So we kind of need to hit the ground running next year. So early is always better for everyone. Ensure all your contact information is up to date. So we're sending phone calls, emails, paper mail to the right place. If you have a preferred method of communicating, let us know. I know that schools send a lot of communication home. I have 2 kids in school. I get all the emails, all the messages. I get it can be a lot. But so if there's a particular way, a text, an email, that we can contact you best, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate that from the teacher and advisor portion. Like I said, as we wrap up here, TRECA students and all online students in Ohio, so this is an Ohio law, are accountable for working 5 hours and 10 minutes each school day. So if your student does finish their weekly work within that amount of time, they should continue to move forward. So just because we do finish that block 1, week 2 this week, if we're still underneath our expected time, then we should continue forward to fulfill that attendance requirement. Like I had said, that time element and that progress element go together. And this is, I get very confusing, very new if you're new to the online environment. but I think we do a really nice job of providing resources and a place for you to always check how your student is doing on time in the Evolve portal. So speaking of that, we do have a session coming up September 3rd. I'm sure Mrs. Staten will record that as well in case you're unable to attend. In this session, you'll learn about what should be logged in Evolve for time. Like, hey, my student read a book for their English class. We need to log that so we know that they spent that time learning away from the computer. We'll learn when and how and where to document all that stuff. In the meantime, if you have a specific question about, did my student meet their time requirement today? If you're at the elementary level, check in with your teacher. If you're at the middle or high school, check in with their advisor, and then come back next week. We'll go over that on the 3rd, which I believe is a Wednesday at 6 o'clock with the time element. Again, just circling back to this, like I said I would, checking and understanding a student's progress is collaborative and ongoing between all of us. We're on the same team, and we want you to ask those questions. We're here to answer them. We love that you're here at 6 o'clock or watching this recording later. It really means a lot to us that you're so engaged and so willing to support your student. We're glad that they're here on our TRECA team. Some final resources here. One would be our TRECA.org/support page. This has a step sheet for basically everything I talked about, like accessing classes in Brightspace, finding the grades page, monitoring your progress. All that's kind of encapsulated in nice little step sheets you can check out at TRECA.org/support. There's also a link to a barrier buster video, which is instead of listening to me ramble for 22 minutes, you can hear Mrs. Monin wrap it up in about 2.5 minutes to show you how to check that progress. So just another way to check that out there. And like I said, the Learning Partner Guide. That is a really valuable tool that you've signed at orientation, or maybe you have a copy of it at home. It just kind of lists for us at the elementary, middle, high school level what expectations and what you can do as a learning partner to support your student in the estimated time it might take. Your students are all wonderfully unique and have different needs. They have different learning styles. And they have different organization and methodologies for doing their work. So just know that we're here to support them, and the more communication between you and us and your student is better to help them meet their goals this year. So that is the end of my portion. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. If you want to raise your hand or just hop on the mic and shout it out, I'd love to answer it. But any questions that came up as I went through all of that information? I know it's a lot. Oh, wonderful. So what if they finish a block early? So for the high school level, middle school level, they would be able to, in most cases, advance to the next block. Like I've had some students in American government who have already completed block 1. That happens a fair amount. Block 1, week 1 is mostly introductory stuff. Welcome to the class. Read the syllabus. I'm Mr. Daly. Who are you? So kids advance to that a little bit quicker than some of the more academic content. So those students are already working in block 2. So that is the case in most courses. If they have a question or don't see the next block opening, they can check with their teacher. It's a wonderful question. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, Ms. Cervello, you can hop on the mic or put in the chat, whatever works best for you.
Mrs. Cervello, did you have a question that we could answer for you? You can unmute your microphone if you would like.
Awesome. Well, I can stick around to the end of Ms. Weaver's presentations if anyone else has any more progress questions. Ms. Brees, do you have a question? Ms. Cervello, feel free to unmute and just shout it out or put it in the chat, whatever works.
So as in the blocks for each class, do they have to stay on this like block 1 for each class and then move on? Or say they're in algebra and they are in block 2, and um, language arts, they're in block 1. Is that okay? Or do they need to stay in the
That
same?
that definitely happens. We prefer if students advance at that same rate of work across all their classes. I think that just makes it easier. If I was a TRECA student, what I would do is I would spend all my time working in government and being like block 7 of government and block 2 of math. Like that's what I would do. And I see that happen sometimes if students have a preferred subject or class or anything, something like that. Ideally, they do keep it pretty symmetrical, pretty even across all of the classes. But that does happen. Maybe they're having, they need a little extra time in science class, or they need to meet with their teacher, so they're not ready to get into block 4 yet, but the other classes they're in block 6. So that happens. Ideally, they are staying on the pretty even across the classes, but it does happen. It's not a bad thing. And if a student finds themselves falling behind in a class, it's always great to reach out to the teacher or the advisor initially to help connect them to the teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Weaver, and I'm the Response to Intervention Coordinator here at TRECA. Essentially, I help support teachers in making sure that students are getting any extra support that they might need in any of their classes. Oftentimes, that is in math or reading. And today we wanted to take just a little bit of time to talk about our universal screener that we use at TRECA. Your student has probably already taken a STAR assessment. Usually at orientation, they take their first math and reading assessments through Renaissance STAR. And we proctor those assessments so to make sure that we get really great data, very accurate, and it's given twice a year for students. Again, most students take it at orientation, and then we have a round for some students in December, and then oftentimes around for some students in the spring around state testing time. Sometimes we'll double up because it is a proctored test. Students have to come into a location to take it. So we wanted to just take a little bit of time and kind of go through look at the results of those assessments. Unfortunately, you are not able as learning partners to just log into STAR and access the results yourself, but you can request them at any time. You can contact your student's math or reading teacher, or even the advisor. If you want to just make one request and ask for all of the assessment results, you can do that, and your advisor can support you and get in contact with the teachers for you. Once you get those, this is an example of the top part of a report that you would get. This example is an English language arts, so the reading test for the family report. And you can see at the top, it has the student's information, it has their name, it has their grade level. This is just a demo report, so that we're not sharing a student's particular data there. So that's why East Elementary might look more like a brick and mortar school. So this is not one of our TRECA students, just a demo student. Gives you the subject and then the date that they took their test. And then it gives you some basic information. Oftentimes, this is sometimes skipped, but I think this paragraph is probably one of the best paragraphs to read through word for word. It summarizes the rest of the report for you and kind of gives you an overview. So on this, it says, first of all, the level is that they are on level 2, and that standard is nearly met. So you can see level 2 is in that yellow range. Level 1 means that the standards for that grade level were not met. The yellow means that they nearly met them. So they're not quite working at grade level, but they're close. Level blue is our first aim for students to have them in that blue area. That means that they're on track. They're doing well. They're learning at the rate we would want them to. And then some students are able to excel into that 4th level, that green level, which means that they've exceeded standards. They're working actually above grade level currently in that subject area. In that paragraph at the top, you see Bella, it says Bella's score of 613. is based on the difficulty of the questions and the numbers of correct responses. Now that number is called a scaled score. And at the bottom, I put examples of what each of these elements are. Essentially, the scaled score it's a number that doesn't mean a whole lot to most people. It allows teachers to look at students across grade levels as they grow and as they get older. The scaled score is designed so that, like, between second grade and third grade is the same number of points as between third grade and fourth grade. So teachers can see, are students learning at the same rate that they did before, or were they learning quickly as a young student and then all of a sudden they hit maybe fourth or fifth grade and all of a sudden they're not growing as much as they did earlier. That's what the scale score allows. Honestly, most learning partners don't find the scale score particularly useful because it seems like it's just an arbitrary number. Not a problem, because there are other things in this report that are much more helpful to you. The benchmark categories, those are those colors. I think that probably is the easiest thing for you to kind of get a real quick snapshot. Is my student on grade level or not? Again, red means that they're not there, yellow almost, blue means they're on track, and then green is they are above where they should be. Up in that paragraph, then you get a percentile rank. It says that they are higher than 37% of students in the third grade. This is a third grade student. Typically third grade students after their second month of the year. So 37 percentile, that means if you had your student and 99 other third graders, they would be higher than 37 of them. So they would be like 38 in rank, and then the other students would be above your student. That's what a percentile is there. I think the best part of this report, though, and the one that makes the most sense to most people, is that grade equivalent, where it says that they are in the third grade students after the second month of the year. So that gives you the grade level equivalency. So let's say you have a fifth grade student and it says 3.2 as their grade level equivalency. So as a fifth grader, that means that they would be working in the second month of the third grade level. So you would know that the student is behind grade level at that point. That was what that 3.2. So the first number is the grade, the school grade level, and then the second one is the month. So third grade, second month is what that means when you're looking at these STAR reports. So if it said 6.4, that would mean it would be a sixth grade level in the fourth month of the year. You can kind of see how your student would line up then. Any questions before we move on, just because this kind of requires us to actually be looking at this part of the report? Any questions about this particular part of the report? Yes, you do need to request the reports. These are not something that you can just pull from yourself. So either your student's math or reading teacher, or the advisor, any of those people. Honestly, pretty much any staff member you could ask and they would be able to get it. Those are the ones who probably can get it the fastest for you. But if you happen to be on a call with your student's guidance counselor, they could access the reports or request the reports on your behalf. So pretty much anybody knows who we're able to go and get them from. So yep, you do need to request them though. When would the STAR report be ready? Yeah, it's already ready. Honestly, it takes sometimes 15-20 minutes for the report to process. It is very, very fast. So I would not request it. For example, if you went in and were in the office, and I wouldn't ask for it right that day unless you said, you can send it to me later tonight. Because it does take a little bit of processing time, but it's very quick. So they should be ready. If they took it at the beginning of the school year, you'd be able to get this report. And you just request the STAR family report. That's a great question. Anybody else have another question? Okay, so this is the bottom of that report then, and this gets into a little bit more detail. This is for parents who really like to see where your students' strengths in either math or reading lie, the particular domains. So this again is an example of an English language arts assessment report. Math would have the equivalent math domains there. So it shows each part. So, reading there's a lot of different parts of reading. So here we have literature. So that would be reading fiction, stories, and so their ability to identify key ideas and details. And then it shows that's their percentile rank. I'm sorry, not percentile rank. This one is their percent mastery. So they have mastered 37% of that grade level's content in key ideas and details. For the range of reading and the level of text complexity, they have learned 28% of that content. Then you go into vocabulary under language. You can see this is a relative strength for that student. So they've already mastered 74% of that domain. And then you go into informational text. So this would be nonfiction texts. And you can see that key idea details there is 39%. So it's interesting because some students do really well with literature for fiction texts, and then they struggle on informational text. So you might have a student who does key ideas and details of literature much higher than those in the informational texts. They're almost identical for this particular student. And then you can see the other items there under informational texts. So if you need any help, if you're looking at this report and you're wondering, how you can support your student, that would be one area that I would go to and look and see what your students' lowest scores, which domains they fall into. And then you can ask your teacher for resources specifically for those domains so that you can be focusing on the specific skills. Because obviously, if they're scoring green, where basically they've mastered everything in that domain, you don't really need to spend extra time there. You'd want to focus on where the student is scoring in the red or the yellow if they have some of those. I'm not really going to get into the zone of proximal development. That's really something that teachers use primarily when they're identifying texts for students to read. But the domain scores, you can just see it there on the right. It just gives a little bit of that, the information that I shared with you there. So in speaking about, how you can support your student in math and reading, a lot of this goes with any course. The first and foremost, if you have concerns and you get a report and you see maybe your child is not reading at grade level and you want to know how you can support them, the first and best thing to do is contact your child's teacher. They know what the student has been working on, where their strengths and where the areas that they need more support in, and so they can guide you best and fastest that way. It's also really important, and this is something that we really see often in the online environment, is that the students have access to their coursework, and it's designed in a very specific way for the students to get the instruction that they need to be successful. It's designed to be worked chronologically from one item to the next, and sometimes, especially as students get a little bit older, they get into their later elementary, middle school, high school, and they don't have as much guidance from a learning partner saying, here, click on this one and do this one now and then this one. And sometimes they skip around, or sometimes they skip past the actual instruction and just jump straight to an assessment or an assignment and try to do the assignment without actually getting the instruction for that. That would not happen in a brick and mortar, because the teacher is only releasing the information as they are teaching it. So that number 2 is really important, to make sure that your student learns how to do that in an online environment, because the courses are designed in such a way that they need to be done progressively, item after item after item in that specific order. Just think back, particularly with math, if you try to jump ahead to the end of a week before you did the assignments that were at the beginning of the week, that would be so confusing. I remember to my math days, if I missed one day of class, I was a little bit behind, and it took a little bit to get caught up because it's so sequential. So make sure that your students are working very sequentially in their courses. Also, make sure that your students are logging into any live sessions that their teachers are providing. Sometimes teachers will have open office hours where students can log in and get help on work. That is really great if your student is struggling a little bit, if that is an option. Otherwise, all you have to do is request to have a teacher work with your child. And they can jump in, see where the needs are, and can get some extra support that way. Of course, we have live tutoring that is available through the links in the Brightspace courses. So you can always have your child sign up to get that live tutoring support as well. Live sessions are crucial. We use a asynchronous form of instruction primarily. So when those live sessions are available, they're really great because that one-on-one immediate feedback from a live instructor is really very, very beneficial. And those are great because, oftentimes, especially if you have a younger student, those are sessions that learning partners can sit in on as well. Honestly, all the way through graduation, learning partners are welcome to sit in on those live instruction sessions, and so that they can learn how to support their student better. So I encourage you, if you have a student who has live sessions, support your student and making sure they attend those, and then feel free to attend them yourself. Not necessarily to learn yourself, but to learn how to support your students and to be able to ask questions directly to the teacher. Of course, teachers are available through phone, email, text as well. So reach out to your teachers. This number 4, I think, is a great option, particularly with elementary, middle school students. Sometimes high school students aren't quite as into this as the younger students, but younger students love to become the teacher. So if, as a learning partner, you can become the student and allow your student to teach them, that is a instructional strategy that has shown through research to be really effective for the student to become the teacher. So for example, in reading, you could have your student read a passage to you, but then they get to ask you questions about the passage. Well, whether it be just, and it could be something for class, or it could just be a storybook that you have sitting, in the house. Let them read it to you so they get practice reading out loud. And then while they're reading, if they know they get to ask you questions, they're going to be thinking the whole time that they're reading. And they're going to be thinking about what they can ask you, and then they can see if they can trip you up. So that's a really great option especially for younger students. For in the math, have your students teach you how to do something. So have them work through the instruction, do some practice problems, and then for one of their practice problems, have them you pretend like you don't know anything how to do this problem at all. Maybe you don't. If you're like me and it's me working with my daughter, oftentimes I have no idea how to help her with that. So she really can be the teacher for me. And then have them teach you based on what they learned. And that's really great because even if they're not 100% confident in teaching you, that helps you see where their needs are. So you can see, the first 3 steps, they like blew through those. They taught me those real quickly. But then when it got to this part of the problem, they weren't real sure. You don't have to know how to do it, but that helps you communicate to the teacher, this part of the problem, they understood that. But when we got here, this is where it fell apart for them. This is where it helps, because the teachers are not seeing them work through the problems on their own. So anything like that you can communicate to the teachers is really beneficial. Helps them very quickly pinpoint where your child has need on any particular lesson or assignment. And so hopefully those are some ideas for you to kind of get you started in helping your teacher or your student. Of course, contact your teacher first and foremost if you have any questions about how you can help them. That really brings me to the end of my portion. Does anyone have any additional questions on supporting, or even back on the report that we looked at? All right, thank you so much for attending.
Okay. Well, if you think of any questions, after our session, feel free to send us an email and we will help get that answered for you. Our next session, like we said, is going to be held on Wednesday, September 3rd at 6 p.m. and it's Evolve for Families in the Parent Portal. As a learning partner for your student, it's important to know how to track student time and how to log time in Evolve. In this session, you'll learn what should be logged in Evolve and when, how you submit the student time. We will also be covering the attendance policy and who you can contact here at TRECA to help get your questions answered. So we have a quick survey for you to complete that we will be sending out.